Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
And welcome, everybody, to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show right here on Channel 3 WKYC. And we've got a lot to get to on today's show, including the Guardians play their first regular season game in 20 days. Who will be out there in their starting lineup on the opener in Oakland? We'll get to that in a little bit. Jason.
I'm Jason Lloyd. We're going to talk about the Browns' free agent approach this year. We think they're going to reconstruct the offense. It's going to look much different next year than what it did last year. What's going to be more dependent on that, the coaches that they hired or the free agents that they signed?
G.
I'm G. Bush, a.k.a. Country Style G. Bush today, getting ready to get you guys together. And I'm going to tell you why and which player is going to be a lock in free agency for the Cleveland Browns. Yeehaw!
And I'm Mikey McNuggets, and the Browns have not won a Super Bowl in the modern era. So how many Cavaliers championships and Guardians World Series would you trade for one Super Bowl parade? We'll find out in a few minutes.
Mike, I'm very aggravated about that topic.
Perfect.
I don't like that topic at all, but we will get to that later in the day. But we begin with, Mike?
Whether or not players or coaches impact offensive change more. As Jason alluded to just a second ago, the Browns hired a plethora of new offensive coaches. It's essentially an entire new offensive staff. And although some of us believe the offense will look much different in 2024 than it did in 2023, you're not so sure that the coaches are the reason why.
I think it's more about the players than the coaches. Everybody thinks, and the general census is, and maybe I'm wrong, that, well, you got a new offensive coordinator and a number of new coaches, so they're going to make significant changes to the offense. The assumption was when Dorsey came in that he would be the play caller. At this point, we don't know for sure. And if he is, maybe it will change. I think the Browns' offense would have changed last year to some degree if Deshaun Watson had not gotten hurt. They would have thrown the ball more with Deshaun Watson, and they did throw it more with Joe Flacco once they had a quarterback that they trusted to throw the ball. Of course, they're going to throw it less with P.J. Walker and DTR. I get what you guys are saying, that it's not just about throwing the ball versus running the ball. It's also about how you throw the ball with quarterback in under center versus shotgun. But I think some of the changes to the offense are really going to be based on the guys they bring in more than the coaches they've added.
I think it's all going to change because of one name, Deshaun Watson. It doesn't matter the free agents, the coaches. They're building it around the quarterback. And I do think it's going to be a different scheme. And I think that they're bringing in coaches, and specifically Ken Dorsey, who has a little bit more experience in running with these spread-type quarterbacks, shotgun approach. Ken calls very much out of shotgun. He has in the past with Cam Newton and Josh Allen and these guys he's coached previously, and Deshaun fits that mold. So anyone that you see sign on the offensive side, I believe, comes with the question of how does this person fit around Deshaun Watson? We are bringing this person in because it fits around Deshaun. We are building this offense around Deshaun. We are bringing in the offensive coordinator because he better fits with what Deshaun likes. All of this is surrounded by what puts Deshaun in the most comfortable position to have success this year.
I agree with Jason. If it was not about, the coaching and moving guys around, then Alex Van Pelt would have still been here, right? We would have kept Alex Van Pelt, ran a little variation. But last year we were sold a bill of goods that said this offense is going to be different. All we saw was Elijah Moore getting end arounds for the first half of the season. That didn't work. We talked about this vertical threat. That was non-existent. And so what I think they did is they went in and made a conscious effort of saying, let's get new guys, some new blood, and a new atmosphere and a new thought process, starting with Ken Dorsey and throwing the football and throwing it the way we want to throw it to be successful in the league. I look around the rest of the league, and Jason talks about it a little bit too. Easier throws, easier using motion. Go watch the Rams, how they use motion to get easy throws and to get mismatches. The Browns were the least motion team in the NFL when you look at from motion and moving guys around. I think they'll be somewhere at the top of that list this year. And I definitely think the coaching staff will trickle down and make Deshaun Watson a more, I would say, a bigger threat in the run game as well as the pass game with some of the new concepts.
Despite the lack of motion, the offense worked very effectively with Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
And, I guess had its moments with Watson, but ultimately the quarterback play wasn't good enough. And yes, I think the coaching changes signal a change on the offense. I just don't know if it's going to be as dramatic as you guys think it is. We'll see. I mean, Deshaun Watson was in the shotgun what percentage of the time last year, Mike? Refresh my memory.
According to an article that Jason actually put out, it was about 66%.
Okay, so how much more do we think it's going to be? Is it going to be significantly more than 66%? Is he going to be shotgun 90% of the time now?
I'd say 70, maybe 80.
Yeah. I mean, if it is, then that is a dramatic change.
Again, I've talked about this before. I talked to him after the Baltimore game where he broke his shoulder.
Right.
And he said, this whole under center concept is new to him. He wasn't complaining about it. He was just saying, I've never really done this before. He was constantly out of shotgun in Clemson. That's pretty much all they ran was shotgun. Houston, he was very much out of shotgun. So I would expect this to be 80, 90% shotgun.
It is weird that if, the report was, who knows what's true, that obviously Deshaun Watson ultimately came to Cleveland because of the money, right?
Yeah.
The money was guaranteed. But it was said that he and Kevin Stefanski had this great conversation, supposedly.
I was told that.
Right? And
for 45 minutes, they sat
and then
there
all of a sudden,
chopping
2
up
years
film.
later, he doesn't. I'm not. I just what has happened? Is there something lost in translation here between the two guys?
Well, sometimes when you
Guess
start
we'll find out.
Sometimes when you start dating people, you don't find out who they really are until 6-8 months down the road, and you say, "Oh well, we're going to have to tweak a couple of things,
That's
right?"
That's why you should live together before getting married.
Kevin very much believes in play action.
Yeah.
We saw that. That's how Flacco had so much success.
Yeah.
And I've got volumes of numbers to back it up. The success that they've had running off play action, that necessarily wasn't what Deshaun likes doing. So I think a lot of that's going to go, and a lot of the shotgun sort of, we talked about it during the YouTube show, Deshaun is at his best sometimes when the play breaks down and he can just go ball. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that in this offense.
But don't get it twisted. Kevin Stefanski and these dudes, they're smart enough to adapt to whatever they want to run. You don't think these is Ivy League dudes. These guys know how to pivot on a dime. They can go find out some vertical passing plays. These guys are smart enough overall to tweak and still work in a collaborative environment.
All right, guys, let's talk about another Browns topic here in the YouTube show. And if you're only watching us on Channel 3, let's say you're a loyal WKYC viewer and you're only on Channel 3 and you see us once a week or you're watching us for the first time, we are on for 2 hours every day from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every weekday, except for a few holidays. We are here talking Cleveland sports with you. We've got you covered. We got a variety of panelists in addition to three of us. Jay Crawford, of course, who you see on Channel 3 all the time, and Tyvis Powell, plus Mikey McNuggets and Earl from behind the scenes are on with us quite a bit too, and Anthony. What I would say is if you haven't seen us on YouTube, maybe you're not YouTube, I don't know, give it a shot. It's really easy. Just type in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on YouTube and you get more of this content, 10 plus hours a week, so please join us. Speaking of the YouTube show, we all gave in that show earlier today, which you can go back and watch later, we gave our dream scenarios for the Browns in free agency. But now we got to get a little more serious. If there's one guy in free agency that the Browns got to add, who is it? Jason.
I want to strangle Mike when he gives us these questions.
You hate him.
I hate these things.
I love you guys too.
I hate these, give me a lock. The one guy, and it can't be a re-sign. It's got to be off another team. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I deal in reality, not
Let's go. Deal in non-reality.
Fine. Jacoby Brissett. That's mine.
Whoa.
How's that?
Really?
Yes, that's the name that I'm giving you.
That is stunning.
I know it is, because I was the one saying roll with DTR. But the reason I like Jacoby over Joe Flacco, we've laid it out on the YouTube show 100 different times. I think there's too much risk in bringing Flacco back just because of the locker room. It was just too much. It was too much success. I think there's too much where if there's any sort of struggle with Deshaun, it's going to divide the locker room where guys are going to go, why aren't we going with that guy who came in last year and played so well? Plus, I don't know that Flacco really fits what they're going to go to on this new offense. Jacoby's a safer bet. He has familiarity with the system. He's not going to cost them a ton. He also is very widely respected in this locker room, but it doesn't come with the same threat. That's the word Bull used in the YouTube show, and I loved it. That's exactly the word I was looking for. Jacoby doesn't provide the same threat that Joe Flacco does to the locker room. Not necessarily to Deshaun, but to the locker room. It's a safe, competent backup. I think it makes a ton of sense all the way around. Jacoby Brissett on a 1-year deal for $5.5 to $6 million.
Gee.
Oh, he said he don't have a crystal ball. I got one. Oh, my crystal ball. I'm seeing California, LA. No, Hollywood. Yes. Hollywood Brown to the Cavs, or not to the Cavs, but to the. I almost
You trick yourself with the basketball, yeah.
Hey, listen. Let's go along with Hollywood Brown. He gives you one thing you need is that receiver. He gives you that explosiveness. He gives you a guy that can take the top off of a defense. And when you see Hollywood Brown, and now you have him with guys that can move around in Amari Cooper, and you have David Njoku running the seams. Now you can attack a defense at 3 different levels. You see what we're talking about? And now Elijah Moore can get slid right to your 3rd or 4th receiver. And guess what? We could deal with that, him being your 3rd or 4th, not 2. So to me, the biggest one, Hollywood Brown, he might cost you, somewhere to 10, 14 million a year, but he's going to give you something that the Browns have not had, which is speed and vertical ability. So thank you for the crystal ball, because I got Hollywood Brown.
All right, I got the same guy. I'm sorry to be boring, but my guy is also Hollywood Brown. Because for this, a lot of the same reasons you gave. Listen, the Browns have this front office's biggest failure in their 4 years has been at wide receiver. Yes, they made a trade for Amari Cooper. That was a great trade. But outside of that, everything they've done at wide receiver to this point, and the story's not written on Cedric Tillman and maybe not even on David Bell. But at this point, everything else they've done at wide receiver has been awful. Awful. And I don't want them drafting wide receiver again. Marquise Brown is not a superstar. He's only had 1,000-yard season. But he's mostly been healthy, and he has great speed. And I think with Deshaun Watson as the number 2 option, or the 2A, 2B to David Njoku's 2A, I think he'd be a 1,000-yard receiver in the Browns. He's way better than Elijah Moore or any of the other receivers. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And I'll give you a quick one real quick. How about linebacker Jordan Brooks out of Seattle? I think he's the perfect fit alongside JOK and Taki Taku, I think will be re-signed to form a very dynamic linebacker trio.
All right, you're the only one going defense. When we come back, defense, offense, pitching, the Cleveland Guardians, their season is 20 days away in Oakland. Who will be in the opening day lineup? We'll give you our predictions next on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show here on WKYC. Guys, it's time to talk Guardians. We are 20 days away. The Guardians will open the season on a 10-game road trip starting in Oakland. You got to stay up very late opening night. I think it's a 10 o'clock game, I believe. So hopefully we'll all stay up. I know I'll be up for it, Jason. I bet you will be too. The question is, who will be in the starting lineup for the Guardians when they do? Jason, you're up first.
Well, first of all, a couple prefaces to this. Remember that on opening day in the years past, Hanley Ramirez and Carlos Gonzalez have appeared in Guardians Indians opening day lineups in the past.
There's been some bad guys.
So whatever you see on opening day isn't necessarily what you're going to see in May, June, July, and August.
Right.
And the reason why I say that, you can go ahead and pull it up, is because Kyle Manzardo is not in this lineup because I don't think he's going to be on the opening day roster. But I do believe that he'll be up probably early May or so. I went with, and I kind of went back and forth on this. Obviously, we know Steven Kwan left. Andres Jimenez is typically batted lower in the order. I originally had him lower in the order, and I had Tyler Freeman starting in center field and batting second. But Freeman has an option left. Florial does not. So ultimately, I landed on Estevan Florial in center field. I don't think Miles Straw is going to be a regular this year. I think they want Florial to work out. I think Tyler Freeman has really asserted himself well this year in spring training. I think you're going to see him a lot in center field, but again, I don't know right away. So for now, there's some names in there that you might roll your eyes at, but I think you will see Kyle Manzardo at some point, Tyler Freeman at some point. But for opening day to start the year, that's what I'm going with.
All right, Mike, let me tell you why Jason's wrong, because if you look at his lineup,
Jason's never wrong.
If you look at his lineup, there's going to be some platoon guys, and he's got some left-handed batters. Now, we don't know who's going to be starting for Oakland for sure on opening day. My assumption is that it will be a pitcher by the name of J.P. Spears. Trust me, folks, you've probably never heard of almost every player on the A's. But J.P. Spears was their best pitcher last year, and he's been fine in spring training. If he was a disaster in spring training, maybe I'd look at somebody else. But J.P. Spears, I think, is their most likely starting pitcher. He is a lefty. And so I did not have Estevan Florial, who I think early will only play against righties, and I did not have Will Brennan in the lineup against the lefty as well. My lineup, though, is similar. 6 of the first 7 guys are exactly the same. Jason and I both have Kwan, Jimenez, Ramirez, Naylor, Laureano, and Bo Naylor. We have those 6 guys in the exact same spots.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows how I feel about Miles Straw, and I don't think he's going to play every day. But I do think he's going to play against lefties at least initially. But I have Tyler Freeman making the team and playing DH. Because Manzardo's not going to be here. Right. Otherwise, I would have had Manzardo at first and Naylor at DH. We're in agreement that Manzardo will not make the team out of spring training. I think Freeman, Brennan, and Florial will all make the team. I forgot who I left out, but I have all 3 of them on. And so, no Rocchio. And so I got Tyler Freeman DHing on opening day, batting 6th. I got Arias playing shortstop, and then Miles Straw because it's a lefty. I'm hoping I don't want him starting at all. I think they'll still start him against lefties sometimes because they're worried, at least early in the season. I think if Florial takes off, he plays center field every day. But I think early in the season, they'll sit him against the lefties.
If Freeman is on the team, I agree with you. He'll be in the opening day lineup in center field. I'm not sure he makes the opening day roster because he has an option left.
It is definitely possible.
They've got a lot of guys right now that they're trying to work through.
That's fair. Go ahead, Mike.
Before G picks which lineup he likes better, I do have a question for both of you guys because you both had Arias as your starting shortstop. And if they are facing J.P. Sears, a lefty, Arias was terrible against lefties last season. He was 9 for 108 against left-handed pitching last season for a whopping .083 batting average. They not really have anyone else to play at shortstop against a lefty?
I want to see Gabriel Arias in the lineup every day at shortstop. Put him out there every day.
That's not going to be a platoon situation. The only way it's not going to be Arias is if Rocchio wins
Right.
But they want Arias to get one more chance, I think. Now, with Stephen Vogt and not Francona, I don't know.
Things could change.
But I'm in agreement. I think I think he's the better prospect long term. But I think you kind of committed last year to Arias. You got to put him in there every day. I agree with you.
I think Arias can do it all. I'm really high
and I can't give up against. They didn't give up on Naylor against lefties for years,
right.
And he finally paid off. It's only been 1 year for Arias. I'm going to have him in the lineup every day. I maybe even bat him a little higher against righties. I think, and I would have Bo Naylor hit a little higher against righties, but that's why. So go ahead, G. You break the tie.
As you did say, most of your lineups are pretty much the same. I'm leaning a little towards Jason's because
No Miles
he
Straw?
had the heart. He had the heart to play Floreal. And guess what? I'm looking for upside. I'm looking for pop. I'm looking for a little change of attitude. And to me, Bulls lineup was solid, but it's more of what we saw last year. I want to see Floreal. And you know, if you're looking at it, I don't have a problem playing Gabriel Arias every single day because I'm going to figure out whether or not I need to move on from him. Will Brennan has showed a little more pop in right field. But the big part about it is I like to see this, and we get a chance to see Bo Naylor and Josh Naylor every game doing their thing. I'll be happy to get 17 to 18 home runs out of Bo Naylor.
By the way, I actually thought it was possible if it's a lefty and nobody did, they would start Hedges instead of Bo Naylor, but I talked myself out of it. I talked myself out of it. I would not. But remember, Miles Straw is not who I want out there. It's who I think that they will start. All right, Mike, what do you got?
Speaking of extra Guardians content, we have the Ultimate Guardian Show launching on March 25th. We also do the Ultimate Cavaliers Show, myself and Jason, once a week, 30 minutes, dedicated to just Cavs coverage. G. Bush does the Ultimate Browns Show Mondays and Fridays, 30 minutes of just Browns coverage. And Earl of Pearl, our guy behind the glass, also does the Ultimate 216 Show every Thursday, a little culture sports combo. And if you want more UCSS content, you can always download us in podcast form as well, wherever you download your podcasts.
Folks, how many kidneys would you trade for a Browns Super Bowl championship? Well, you don't have to give up those, but would you give up a Cavs championship or a potential Guardians championship? We'll see what everybody thinks. Coming up next on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on WKYT. Welcome back to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show here on WKYC. Guys, this is one of these wacky questions that Mike comes up with, but fans think about these kind of things all the time. What would you trade? I almost wanted to say a Klondike bar there. So I don't know that I've ever actually had a Klondike. Have you had a Klondike bar?
We have in the freezer.
What'd you do?
I have
Klondike bar.
crunchy and regular in the freezer right now. No sugar added.
You guys are in better shape than me.
That's
Nice
right.
job. But what would you? Mike suggested. I don't know why it's 2 Cavs and 1 Guardians.
I can tell you why.
Go, tell me why.
So before the show yesterday, we had Tyvis Powell, who's also on this panel, upstairs in our pre-production room. And I was asking Earl and Tyvis, okay, would you do 2 and 2? 2 Guardians World Series, 2 Cavs NBA championships for 1 Super Bowl. Would you do 2 and 1? So I settled on 2 and 1 because that got the most dissension from my audience. So I came to the conclusion.
From your audience of
Would
2?
Well, I also asked some people in the office that weren't in the room, but I started with Tyvis and Earl. So would you trade 2 Cavaliers NBA championships and 1 Guardians World Series win for 1 Browns Super Bowl?
Go ahead, Jason.
Would you do it?
No.
3 for 1.
I'm throwing 3 parties over 1 party. I know I'm probably in the minority on that, but I mean, I had a lot of fun in June of 2016 when I don't know what the number was, but there was a lot of people downtown, and they had a pretty big party there. I wouldn't mind doing that 3 times over 1 time, so give me more. I'll take quantity over the quality of a Super Bowl. I know the Super Bowl is a bigger deal, and the NFL is a bigger deal and all that, but those parades, those baseball and NBA parades are an awful lot of fun too. Give me those.
And this is tough, man.
I thought you were going to say definitely yes.
I would have
This
put
is
you as
tough,
definitely
yeah. 3 versus 1. I would have to reluctantly say I'd go with the Browns, just because what type of city this is, and we're born into it, and where we're at with football. But that's tougher than it seems, because I mean, like Jason said, I had a great time with the Cavs, and even when 2016 came around, I had a great time watching the World Series games with the Guardians and back in the 90s. So to say if those 90s teams were able to get it together and they won, it'd be hard pressed. But I would go just a sliver. I'd say yes, just to be selfish, and say I'd trade those for a Browns Super Bowl.
I mean, it depends what you are as a fan and what your favorite team is. I think my guess is that the majority of sports fans that are either live in Cleveland or are from here originally would make the trade that G. Bush would make.
Probably.
Not easily, but would. I'm with Jason, though, and I'll look at it. I agree with what you said, the celebrations. I'll look at it from a selfish standpoint as somebody who didn't grow up rooting for Cleveland teams. And I have a level of fandom now for the Cavs, the Browns, and the Guardians. But if you ask me, as from a personal standpoint, which team do you root for the most? I root for the Guardians the most because I love baseball. I love football, but I root for the Guardians the most. And maybe that's partly because the team I root for in football is in the same division as the Browns, whereas the team I root for in baseball is not, even though we know what happened in 2016. I'd still root for the Browns to beat anybody in the Super Bowl, and I'd root for the Guardians to beat anybody but the Cubs in the World Series. Yeah. And I obviously rooted for the Cavs to win a championship. I do root for all teams at some level, but my favorite Cleveland team is the Guardians. So I would not, if the Guardians could win a championship, I would not give that up for anything.
Bull, it's so tough for me. I was sitting around the house, and we were at Jay's house for a Christmas party a couple of years ago, and I just looked at Jay and said, "There's no way I'd be here if the Browns was in this game. If the Browns were in the Super Bowl, I am not at your party. I don't even think I could have family over. I'd be that nervous." And for me, I get goosebumps just thinking about the jerseys on Super Bowl Sunday, seeing the Browns jerseys on the prime time with a halftime show. Jason, is crazy. I get queasy. Like I just excitement, man.
The weather for the basketball parade is the best, of course. It was hot that day. Yes. And the baseball would be, pretty good in early November. Yep. The football parade here in February would be rough from that standpoint, but there'll certainly be a zillion people. Although we're going to have a zillion people. Opening day for baseball with the eclipse, it's going to be bonkers downtown.
Yeah.
And it's the Final Four weekend, too, in Cleveland.
That's true. The women's Final Four. I should say home opener, not opening day of the season.
Just
Mike, you want to give a quick answer?
Yeah, well, I would. I'm all about. I want to see a Super Bowl parade here in Cleveland. I think the Browns fans have been tortured enough; they deserve it. Earl said he would trade 4, 2-2. Tyvis said 2-1.
Okay. If you're saying you do 2-2, you do any amount.
Right.
Earl's being disingenuous.
Why is 4
Earl would
not
trade
5?
20 for it. He's being disingenuous if he says
he would trade
else.
human life for it. No,
right. Make sure you join us every weekday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on YouTube of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Please join us. And thanks as always for joining us on WKYC. We'll see you next time.
Peace.